Hello everyone, my name is Lawrence Johnston and I'm delighted to wish you all a very warm welcome on behalf of SCARF for today's webinar. As part of Challenge Poverty Week today, we will be focusing on fuel poverty. Before we begin, however, for those of you with any questions during the course of the session, you can submit these to SCARF at info@scarf.org.uk. That's info@scarf.org.uk, putting webinar query in the subject header, and our team of specialist advisors will get back to you very soon. So, poverty manifests itself in many different forms, and many of us will have an awareness of some degree and potentially will have experienced directly or indirectly the implications and consequences of poverty within our communities. And we hope this webinar will provide greater awareness of the extent of the specific issue of fuel poverty, as well as examples of the types of support and assistance available to those most in need around us. Through the course of the session, we're going to look at fuel poverty in a bit more detail. What is the current definition of fuel poverty? And a snapshot of the latest data, clearly demonstrating the challenge faced in eradicating what is indeed a national issue. We'll then go on to look at a variety of the grants and schemes available to enable organisations like SCARF to assist those already in a fuel poor household or at risk of falling into fuel poverty. SCARF was originally founded in 1985 as an urban aid project to help people living in fuel poverty in Aberdeen. We now sit today as an established charity and social enterprise working across the northeast of Scotland, with 2 offices in Aberdeen and Dundee and 60 staff across 2 locations. We're proud of our achievements in respect to being voted in the top 100 not-for-profit UK companies in the UK for 6 of the last 7 years. We provide energy advice and advocacy services on behalf of the Scottish Government and local authorities across the northeast of Scotland. We are also the managing agent for local authorities delivering energy improvement schemes within the communities, and we provide a gateway for households and businesses to access grants and interest-free loans for home energy efficiency improvements, commercial premises and renewable technologies. We're also proud to be community partner in the delivery of a number of community-led projects across the northeast. Our main charitable aims are eradicating fuel poverty, promoting energy efficiency improvements and reducing carbon emissions. SCARF deliver a wide range of energy efficiency advice services to householders and businesses across northeast Scotland, such as the Home Energy Scotland scheme. This is a national scheme funded by the Scottish Government and managed by the Energy Savings Trust, established to provide expert advisors offering free, impartial advice on energy saving, keeping warm at home, renewable energy, greener travel, cutting water waste and much more to help people in Scotland create warmer homes, reduce their bills and help tackle climate change. Local authorities across North East Scotland, including Aberdeenshire Council, Aberdeen City Council, Angus Council and Perth and Ross Council, provide direct funding for SCARF to provide free, personalised and impartial in-home energy advice and support, ranging from fuel debt issues to tariff and supplier switching, referrals to energy efficiency improvement schemes, financial assistance and other support services from within our extensive network of partner organisations. So what is fuel poverty and why does it matter? In the next sequence, we're going to look at the definition of fuel poverty, some of the data behind it, the causes, and more importantly, the impact. So what is the definition of fuel poverty in Scotland? The current fuel poverty bill, passed by the Scottish Parliament in 2019, defines a household to be in fuel poverty if more than 10% of its net income after housing costs is required to heat the home and pay for other fuel costs, with not enough money left for a decent standard of living. In addition to this, if more than 20% of the net income is needed for fuel costs, the household is defined as being in extreme fuel poverty. So now let's have a look at a snapshot of the data that demonstrates which parts of society are most adversely affected by fuel poverty. Over 600,000 households in Scotland, which represents about 25% of all households, are in fuel poverty. Almost 12% of these are in extreme fuel poverty. Approximately half of these households are households without children, and around 15% of households living in fuel poverty are families with children, and 36% are older households. Fuel poverty is a strong association with income, and households in the lower income bands have the highest rates of fuel poverty, 95% for the bottom income band and 55% for the second bottom band. The highest rates of fuel poverty by tenure are found in the social sector, where almost 40% of local authority and housing association households are determined to be fuel poor. By comparison, only 10% of those with a mortgage are currently assessed to be fuel poor. And the levels of fuel poverty among households using electricity as a primary heating fuel have remained among the highest at 43%. So now let's have a look at some of the main causes of fuel poverty. Let's begin with poor energy efficiency of buildings and dwellings. Our first consideration is around the climate. I guess it's fair to say coming to visit Scotland can be an extremely enjoyable and pleasurable experience, but alas, most of the time, unfortunately, not due to the abundance of warm, sunny weather. And this, of course, presents a very obvious challenge in the fight against fuel poverty, with many of our properties older, stone-built construction with poor insulation or no insulation at all, especially in some of the more rural and remote areas of the country. Many of us may live in drafty homes from which lots of heat escapes and rely on heating systems that are old and inefficient. Because we don't have much money to spare, it's difficult to make our homes more energy efficient, which would reduce our bills. Therefore, the cost of trying to heat these properties is often unaffordable. This is where getting in touch with SCARF to find out if you may be eligible, qualify for a grant or an interest-free loan could be of benefit to you. Low disposable household income continues to be a primary contributor towards fuel poverty in our communities. With the demise of the manufacturing, to some degree agricultural industries in Scotland, the challenge facing our workforce has become even greater. Inequalities in income are also a contributor, demonstrated very clearly by statistics released in 2018, stating the top 10% of the population in Scotland earned approximately 27% more income than the bottom 40% combined. Compound this with the general cost of living rising, and this is also putting pressure on our finances, so we have less money to go around. The high price of domestic fuel remains an issue. The cost of energy keeps increasing, which means we need to spend more of our income on paying these bills. Finally, we can look at how we use our energy in our homes, essentially our behaviours. How often do you fill the kettle half full or full to make a cup of tea? How often do you fill the sink with hot water to wash a couple of dishes? Do you leave your TV and satellite box on standby? Or do the kids leave the PlayStation or iPad plugged in when they go to bed at night or go to school in the morning? It's these behavioural elements that differentiate themselves in that we have total control of these. Did you know that by turning all your appliances off standby mode can save you around £35 a year? Or installing a low-cost room thermostat and turning the thermostat down by just 1 degree can save around £135 a year. This is exactly where one of our special advisors can help you. Finally, let's consider some of the impacts and effects of living in fuel poverty, and remembering this potentially affects over 600,000 households in Scotland today. Fuel poverty through living in a cold and damp house is a clear contributory factor in health issues such as respiratory diseases, heart diseases, circulatory diseases and mental health problems. It also contributes towards increased winter deaths, repeat visits to GPs and admissions to hospitals, and therefore compounds the strain on an already overwhelmed health service. Struggling with high energy bills can have an adverse impact on the mental health of family members. Depression and mental health is one of the biggest health issues surrounding those in colder homes. Many adults in cold homes develop multiple mental health conditions, such as anxiety, and at different levels of depression. Long-term exposure to a cold home for children can affect weight gain in babies and young children, increase hospital admission rates for children, and increase the severity and frequency of asthmatic symptoms. Children in cold homes are more than twice as likely to suffer from breathing problems, and those in damp and mouldy homes are up to 3 times more likely to suffer from coughing, wheezing, and respiratory illness compared with those living in warm, dry homes. Fuel poverty may even affect children's education. For example, if health problems keep them off school, or if a cold home means there is no warm, separate room to do their homework. And for adults, minor illnesses can impact on their daily tasks. For example, bringing the children to school, making their meals, as well as going to work. I'm sure many of you will have heard the heat or eat analogy. Well, the heat or eat analogy is actually reality. Research suggests that this winter many low-income households won't be able to afford either sufficient food or fuel. These incredibly tough budgeting decisions are leading households to prioritise and ration their spending in complex ways. Food is often prioritised over heating, and cheaper food is often bought out of necessity. And using energy for lighting, cooking and hot water is often prioritised over heating. This is real life for over 600,000 households in Scotland alone. Let's find out how Scarf can help you help them. I hope I've been able to give you a little more insight into fuel poverty and, more importantly, why it matters. I'll now pass you over to my colleague Alex, who will talk through some of the schemes and assistance packages available to Scarf to provide support to those most vulnerable.
Thanks, Lawrence. So my name is Alex, and I'm just going to go over our Warmer Homes Scotland scheme. So, Warmer Homes Scotland is a Scottish Government funded scheme managed by Warmworks that helps Scottish householders keep warm by fitting new energy efficiency measures such as home insulation, central heating, draft proofing, and home renewable systems. So if you're finding your home hard to heat, or if you're struggling with your fuel bills, Warmer Homes Scotland may be able to help. The Scottish Government has also recently increased the scheme budget in September to help support a green recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. Now, since its inception, Warmer Homes Scotland has helped almost 20,000 households with an average of £4,000 worth of improvements made per household. These measures not only improve the lives of householders by making them more comfortable in their homes and also saving them on their energy bills, but these measures also contribute to Scotland's mission to reduce carbon emissions. After support from Warmer Homes Scotland, homes are on average 20% more energy efficient, with householders saving an average of £300 per year in their energy bills, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, as you can imagine, Warmer Homes Scotland is subject to eligibility. So to qualify for Warmer Homes Scotland, you need to be a homeowner or renting from a private sector landlord. Another thing to note is that you need to have stayed in the home for at least 12 months as well. Now, Warmer Homes Scotland also takes into consideration your circumstances. So if you're of pensionable age with no central heating or a broken boiler, if you're 75 or over, or even if you have children under 16 in the home, or if you're pregnant, you could be entitled to receiving aid from Warmer Homes Scotland. However, as well as the criteria I've mentioned above, you'd also need to be in receipt of an income-based benefit. Now, this could be guaranteed element pension credit, employment support allowance, job seekers allowance, universal credit, working or child tax credits too. The exception is if you receive a disability-based benefit, such as carer's allowance, personal independence payment, or high-rate disability living allowance, you don't need the qualifying circumstances to access help from Warmer Homes Scotland. So, for example, if you are a single mother with universal credit in a rented accommodation, you may be eligible for Warmer Homes Scotland. But if you're a homeowner with 2 children under 16 in the house with no income-based benefit, you won't be entitled to any help from Warmer Homes Scotland. And of course, if you're a homeowner with something like personal independence payment, you don't need any secondary benefit or circumstance to qualify for Warmer Homes Scotland. So, how do you apply for Warmer Homes Scotland? If you think you might be eligible for this help, the first thing to do would be to give our free phone number a call on 0808 808 2282. Over the phone, we'll go through your different circumstances and we'll look at your property through a home energy check report. This is essentially a list of detailed questions just to see if you need help from Warmer Homes Scotland in the first place. We'll then refer you on to Warmworks and book a date for your survey. And once you've been referred through ourselves to Warmer Homes Scotland, we'll check with the Department for Work and Pensions just to make sure that you're in receipt of the qualifying benefits. Now, on the day of your survey, Warmworks will identify a range of energy saving measures to help improve the comfort of your home and to reduce your energy bills. And if you're happy with the energy saving measures that Warmworks put forward, they'll go ahead and get the work booked in for you as soon as possible. So all of the work is done on your behalf. All you need to do is give us a call. So, as you now know, Warmer Homes Scotland is a Scottish Government grant that is managed by Warmworks. The scheme is subject to your tenure, circumstances and benefits. If you do qualify for Warmer Homes Scotland, you'll next receive a survey from Warmworks just to decide the energy efficiency measures that you'll receive. Then the best part, you'll get the work booked in for you. So if you'd like to apply for Warmer Homes Scotland, you can either give us a call on our free phone number, which is 0808 808 2282, or you can even email ourselves, which you can find more information on through our Energy Saving Trust website or the Home Energy Scotland website. I hope you find this information useful. Warmer Homes Scotland has helped a number of households and they could help you too. Now I'll pass you over to Ross to go over our area-based schemes.
Thanks, Alex. My name is Ross Adams and I'm a Programme Manager at SCARF. My role is to oversee and manage the Energy Efficient Scotland area-based schemes and also the Energy Company Obligation schemes, or ECO schemes for short, which run in the northeast of Scotland. Today I'm just going to discuss both of them, so the area-based schemes and the ECO schemes, how they work and how SCARF help assist in the delivery of them. Just to say, the figures I'm going to cover today, they are for Aberdeenshire, but if you'd like figures for your local area, whether that's Aberdeen, Tayside, Dundee, wherever that is, let me know and I can get them to you after as well. I just want to speak about the Energy Efficient Scotland area-based schemes. So this pot funding was launched in 2013 by the Scottish Government, and it was originally under the name Home Energy Efficiency Programmes for Scotland area-based schemes. So a bit of a mouthful, but it was normally shortened to HEAP-SABs. That was then renamed in 2019 to the easier to say Energy Efficiency Scotland area-based schemes. But regardless of the name, the aim of this funding has always been to enable local authorities to develop and deliver energy efficiency programs in their local areas, and especially in areas with high levels of fuel poverty. Essentially how it works, each year each local authority in Scotland, with the help of delivery partners in some cases like SCARF, they design schemes and submit plans for these schemes to the Scottish Government. The Scottish Government then review these submissions from the local authorities, and then award a certain amount of funding to each local authority to implement these schemes. And as I said previously, these schemes are aimed at areas with low efficiency and high levels of fuel poverty, and this is just to ensure that the funding's going towards the areas that need it most, but also the people that need it most. So you might have a very inefficient household with a family that's fairly into fuel poverty, and it's making sure that we're trying to get as many people out of fuel poverty as possible and increasing the efficiency of the private housing stock. For this reason, the vast majority of the schemes that are designed by local authorities, certainly in the northeast anyway, are designed as external wall insulation schemes. So for those of you that are unaware, external wall insulation is a form of solid wall insulation, and it involves fixing a layer of insulated boarding to the outside wall of a property before covering it with render. And that's installed on properties where it's not possible to do cavity wall insulation, which is cheaper. So in a cavity wall property, you've got two walls that make up the outer wall of the property with a cavity in the middle, and it's very easy to just drill through in that cavity and pump the insulation in. That's not possible on solid wall properties, which is why external wall insulation is in most instances the only option. Now, it does vastly increase the energy efficiency of a property by installing external wall insulation, and for that reason, it is a very popular area-based scheme, and coupled with the fact that there is a very high cost of this installation. You're looking at probably between £10,000 and £15,000 for a standard semi-detached house to get this work done. The area-based scheme funding means that a lot more properties can get external wall insulation that may not have had it without that funding, just because it's unlikely that many of these households would actually go ahead and get this done without the funding, just due to the prohibitive cost. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't area-based schemes that offer different measures. So you can have cavity wall insulation schemes, loft insulation schemes, underfloor insulation schemes. In some cases, you can have hard to treat cavity wall insulation schemes, which includes the removal of old failed cavity wall insulation to put in new cavity wall insulation. And in the case of these lower cost measures, such as the loft and the cavity wall insulation, the area-based scheme funding does ordinarily fully cover the cost of these measures. However, in the case of external wall insulation, it normally doesn't meet the full cost of this measure, and therefore it's pretty common for the area-based scheme funding to be blended with energy company obligation funding, which I'll speak a little bit more about in a minute, and also contributions from the owners of the properties. So, for example, you would have, in the case of an external wall insulation installation, you would have X amount of funding coming from the area-based schemes, X amount of funding coming from the energy company obligation, and the householder would make up the remainder of that. Now, it should be said that the owner contribution in this instance, it's normally or almost always relatively low, and in the vast majority of cases does represent less than 10% of the total cost of the works. So normally in the region of £500 to £1,000 is the owner contribution. And just across Scotland, just to give you an idea of how much money has gone into this. So measures have been delivered to almost 90,000 households across Scotland at a cost of £374 million. So a huge amount of money has been spent trying to increase the efficiency of properties across Scotland. Next, I'm just going to briefly speak about SCARF's involvement in these schemes and how we help deliver them. Our involvement actually differs depending on the local authority area that you're speaking about, but in terms of Aberdeenshire, we assist in these four main areas. So firstly, the scheme design. So we can help councils, Aberdeenshire Council, in the identification of potential areas for future schemes, most of the time in terms of external wall insulation. To do that, we utilise the Energy Saving Trust's Home Analytics, which is a unique data service that identifies property and energy efficiency characteristics for homes all across Scotland and Great Britain for that matter. And we use that to identify areas that have low energy efficiency, areas that are going to be suitable for the works we're looking to do, and also areas where fuel poverty tends to be a bit higher. That information then gets fed back to the councils, and it allows them to design the final schemes and submit their bids to the Scottish Government. Once schemes have been approved, we also help with householder engagement. So we ensure all properties and all households included in schemes are made aware of works that are upcoming, made aware of works that are ongoing, and how they can sign up for it. So we do that through a variety of ways. Firstly, mailing. So we always mail or send letters to every household that's included in a scheme to let them know this is what's upcoming, this is how you sign up, this is how it will work, these are the timescales. And then we run community events. So we go out into the community, invite them to come along, speak to us face to face, speak to the contractor that's appointed face to face, and also just get an idea of how it will work. And finally, we do conduct regular site visits where we can, just to engage with the contractor that's on site and any householders that we bump into, just to see how things are getting along and maintain SCARF's presence in that area. Obviously, that's been a bit limited over the last 6 months for obvious reasons. We can also help with complaint mediation and resolution as well. So in the unlikely event that a customer isn't happy with any of the aspect of works that have been ongoing in their property, SCARF can help with the mediation of their complaints. That could be anything from helping them get in touch with the contractor to rectify an issue, or attending mediation meetings between the householder and contractor, helping set deadlines for resolutions and making sure that the contractor is sticking to it, just to make sure that the customer feels like everything's been dealt with on an ongoing basis. And finally, SCARF also monitor and evaluate each scheme each year. That involves two sections. One's a technical study, one is a social study. So the technical study shows how the heat retention abilities of a home change after the installation is installed. So we put a small temperature monitor in that sits for 3 months before the installation and 3 months after, and it just shows us how well a home retains the heat after the installation compared to before. And the social study side of it investigates how the installation actually impacts householders' lives. So that could be their livelihood, their health. Has putting in the installation helped make their home easier to heat, lowered their bills, and therefore improved their physical or mental health? These are all the things that we research and produce a report on, which gets fed back to Aberdeenshire Council each year as well. Briefly, want to just touch on the figures for this. So Aberdeenshire funding awards, you can see through each year from 2013-14 where the funding has gone, and as you can see over the years, the schemes have diversified. So in the beginning, when the funding was announced, everything was focused towards external wall insulation. The next year it was identified that there was actually other measures, like the hard-to-treat cavity wall that I spoke about, that could be done. And this just evolved over time. So you've always got the base of the external wall insulation, but as you do more and more of them in an area, and there's less areas the external wall insulation could be suitable for, you have to branch out and look at other solutions. And we're now in a situation where there's 4 measures that are being installed through area-based schemes in Aberdeenshire. So that's external wall insulation, the hard-to-treat cavity wall insulation, underfloor insulation, and internal wall insulation, which is the same as external wall insulation, but it's done on the inside of the property. So insulated boards go on the inside, which is a little bit more invasive, but is the only solution in some cases, such as when you've got flats and things like that. And just to give you an idea, to date, I think it's just under 1,400 external wall insulation installations in Aberdeenshire, and just over 2,000 hard-to-treat cavity wall installations since 2013. And that is got household bill savings of over 17.5 million, and just or over 70,000 tonnes of CO2 emissions as well over the lifetime of those measures. So a huge amount of savings for the local area come through those area-based schemes. In terms of locations, you can see here where the area-based schemes have been targeted. So on the left is each area-based scheme area, and where areas where there has been an area-based scheme, and on the right is a heat map, so where they're most densely the schemes have been delivered. Obviously, you can see massive spread that each area across Aberdeenshire has been targeted and offered area-based schemes. But in terms of the actual density, the most work has gone on in Peterhead, where you may be aware a big external wall insulation scheme was ongoing for I think at least 3 or 4 years. The same is Fraserburgh and Banff, and what you'll see is over the years, as this funding continues, the heat map will have more heat on different areas. The next area will be Ellen, where there's a lot of external wall insulation going on just now as well. Just wanted to briefly speak about the energy company obligation that I referred to earlier as well. So the energy company obligation is a UK-wide scheme. So the area-based schemes are Scotland-based. The energy company obligation is UK-wide, and that is a scheme that's aimed to, again, help reduce carbon emissions and tackle fuel poverty. It's actually funded this time by the energy companies who meet an agreed obligation threshold. So that it can be in 2 ways. So they provide over a certain amount of energy to households across the UK, or they have a certain number of customers across the UK. So it's either of these, and then they're then obligated to opt into the energy company obligation, where portions of their profits go back into the private housing stock to increase their efficiency. This, again, like the area-based schemes, began in 2013 and has undergone quite a few amendments over time. Just now, we're in Eco 3, or Energy Company Obligation 3, which is the latest policy, and that began in October 2018. Essentially, this scheme, so Eco 3, consists of one distinct obligation, and that's the Home Heating Cost Reduction Obligation, or HHCRO. That basically requires energy suppliers to promote the installation of measures that lead to financial savings on energy bills, such as the installation of insulation and heating measures. So they need to make aware their customers that there are options on installing things, but they also have to fund the actual installation of these. And people can be eligible for this funding in a variety of ways. So if you're eligible for the Warm Home Discount Scheme, then you're eligible for the energy company obligation. If you receive certain benefits, you're eligible. If you're a social housing tenant, then you're actually eligible as well if your EPC is low enough, so an E, F, or G rating, which the Energy Performance Certificate, EPC, just tells you how efficient the property is. Social housing tenants that have an Energy Performance Certificate rating of D as well can also qualify. And finally, local authorities can set their own eligibility criteria as well under their statement of intent. So Aberdeenshire can set their criteria, and if you meet that, you will also be eligible for it. And these schemes can work in a few different ways. So energy company obligation schemes can work in a few different ways. Firstly, like I said previously, they can be blended into area-based schemes, where the contractor who is running that scheme can partner with an energy supplier who provides money under the energy company obligation that helps fund the work through the area-based scheme. So in terms of external wall insulation, lowers the customer contribution. But conversely, these schemes can actually be run on their own as well. So you could have an energy supplier running their own scheme in an area, like E.ON did in Aberdeenshire last year, where they were offering insulation measures and new heating systems through that. Scarf's involvement in these schemes varies again, but one of the things that we do for the council in this is the administration of their EcoFlex eligibility questionnaires that are completed by contractors. And these questionnaires are just filled in by householders. And that they let us see who is and isn't eligible for the energy company obligation, and we feed that back to the council. So it does sound quite confusing, and there's a few different schemes, and it's always very difficult to say this is exactly what's going on in this area right now. What I would say the best thing to do is, if you are interested in finding out what's running in your area or what you'd be eligible for, is to contact Home Energy Scotland. They have a big tool that will be able to tell you exactly what's going on in your area, exactly what you're eligible for. So I'd highly recommend you get in touch with them just to find out a bit more about these schemes. Hopefully I've been clear enough for these things, which can be slightly confusing. But if you do want any information, let me know after we've finished, and I can provide that whether by email or just by speaking to you today. But just now, I'm just going to pass you over to Lawrence. Okay.
Thanks, Ross. So hopefully you found the information provided by Alexandros useful, and would encourage you to pick up the phone and talk with one of our advice team and find out what you may be eligible for And even if you're not eligible for a scheme, you will still be able to get the benefit of free and impartial energy advice to help reduce the cost of your fuel bills. Yeah, so there are many other funds and support packages around that people can apply to if they find themselves struggling, and I can briefly run through a couple of them for you just now. The first one is the Scarf Heat Fund, which was established by Scarf earlier this year, and it's designed to provide financial assistance in emergency situations where the householder may find themselves in a position of being unable to put money on their meter for their heating and lighting, or may be dangerously close or about to run out of credit. Each case is individually assessed by one of our expert advisors, and if the customer is eligible, a payment can be processed immediately. Since the scheme started, which was I think March, we've already provided over £7,000 worth of financial assistance to people across the North East. The Scottish Welfare Fund helps families and people in Scotland who are on low incomes through crisis grants and community care grants. Crisis grant, for example, would be if you're in an emergency situation, maybe a fire or a flood, or you've maybe lost your money, or you've had an unexpected expense, you can make an application for the crisis grants. The community care grant, similarly, is there to help people who are looking to settle into community life. So it may be, for example, someone coming out the end of the justice system. Applications can be made via your local authority for any of these grants, and the applicant must be over 16 and on a low income or in receipt of some form of benefits. Another example of an assistance package is the recently closed prepayment meter fuel voucher scheme, which was funded by the Ofgem Energy Redress Fund. Scarf received funding from this, and we were able to run a scheme over 3 months earlier this year, and we distributed £3,049 fuel vouchers to people with prepayment meters across the North East of Scotland. The second scheme is actually going to be starting later this month, so you can keep an eye out for that one. Also, your energy company themselves may have an assistance scheme running at any given time as well. For example, the Warm Home Discount Scheme opened up for applications during September, and eligible customers can receive £140 credit onto their energy account. Our advisors can talk you through the process and establish if you are eligible, and can also help make the application on your behalf. And the final one for today is the Let's Talk Energy Fund. It's designed to help residents in England, Scotland or Wales who are struggling to pay their bills and or replace inefficient white goods such as cookers, fridges, freezers, washing machines. And they also help repair or replace gas and oil boilers. The funding for this is provided by the energy companies themselves as part of their commitment to help the consumer with energy bills and energy usage. But again, one of our expert advisors can help with the application process. So to finish off, just a recap of how you can get in touch with Scarf. So for access to grants and schemes and general energy efficiency advice, your number to call is 0808 808 2282. That's 0808 808 2282. If you'd like to talk to one of our specialist advisors and get one-to-one tailored advice for your home energy, the number to call is 0808 129 0888. That's 0808 129 0888. And we're also on social media. You can connect with us at Scarf Scotland on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter. So I hope this session has been useful in providing more insight into the types of assistance that is out there, and who knows what you or someone you know may qualify for. So pick up the phone and see what our advice team may be able to assist you with. Thank you for registering for today's webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day.